Hello, welcome back to another video. It's Rich here, and this week's video is a little bit different because I'm not covering one of my sports cars. Instead, I'm looking at my daily SUV 4x4. And before you switch off, I think it's important that we look at cars like this, the everyday cars, where in family life you need a degree of practicality. So let's take a look at my 2005 Mitsubishi Shogun Sport. So the Shogun Sport was the first generation like this, was built from 98 through to about 2006, and they came in either 3 litre V6 petrol or 2.5 litre turbo diesel, and again in either 5-speed manual or 4-speed auto. This is the 2.5 litre turbo diesel with the 5-speed manual transmission. So just have a quick look around the Shogun Sport then. Just looking at the front of the car, you've obviously got the bonnet scoop there, and I think it's aged really well actually. You've got the lower fog lights as well, and I think it looks quite a smart looking SUV from the front. If you look down the sort of side profile of the car, the thing that you most notice is the large alloy wheels, and for a 4x4 these run 18 inches. And then you make the way down. These have got the this is the Warrior, which is the highest spec with various specs that came in. They came in, and this has got also the side step, which actually, to tell you the truth, I rarely use. In fact, the only time I use that tends to be for cleaning the top of the car. The roof bars was quite an oddity really, because the way they sitted, and they're sort of sighted towards the back 2/3 of the roof rather than the front, and that was quite strange when we used these to go up to, used the Shogun Sport to go up to the Isle of Moreland. We took a couple of kayaks with us, and to get a sort of a centre of gravity of the kayaks tended to be off the back of the truck because of the roof bars being situated where they were. Quite strange really. And then the other thing you notice from the side is the rear spoiler. It's quite strange really. That's the biggest spoiler I've got in any of my cars. So my 4 sports cars don't have a spoiler anywhere near that size. And then you go around the back of the car. I mean, it's not got many signs of age, considering this is 100,000 mile. You'll expect most will come with tow bars, because obviously Shogun Sports are absolutely ideal for towing. The towing capacity is slightly down on the full-blown Shogun. The Shogun and a lot of the full-blown 4x4s are 3,200 kilogram towing capacity. The Shogun Sports are 2,900 kilograms, so just 300 kilograms less on these. Let's have a look in the boot. So there's just a couple of things to show you here. It's quite a high step up. That's the first thing I'd say actually. And that's good for our little dogs. Sometimes you have to lift them into the boot. And then in here, one or two little, I say it's a pretty standard sort of size. It's nothing special in here, typical Japanese really, I suppose. There's a couple of storage compartments here. There, but you can put what you want in. Shopping bags are in there for us, and on the other side as well. Plus you've got the 12-volt power supply next to it. And then the other interesting feature is you've also got the screen wash for the rear wash wipe, which I always find quite amusing that that's in that position. So that's the boot. Size wise, so this being the Warrior, does come with leather as standard, but you look at the condition here, and I think this has got to be a commendation really for Mitsubishi to build Seats, leather seats, as robust as this. Possibly they've had low usage, I don't know. Not with us, and we generally quite often have 3 or 4 people in this. It is quite a tight squeeze though. If you want 3 adults in the back, there's not a huge amount of space. It has electric windows all the way around. So the other quirk with the Shogun I just wanted to show you is if I take these headrests out, I'll just put them over there, and then collapse the seats, then it's simply a lever here. If you pull up on that lever, lifts the seat. You have hidden here a secret compartment with your toolkit for changing the tyre, which in truth I don't think you'd ever find. And in here, under this flap, is the jack. So that's where it is, hidden well. The only other point to say is when you drop the seats, you do have this lip here. So it's not it's not a flat roof. So that's one annoying feature of the Shogun Sport. But quite a quirk is, what do you do with your headrests? Well, Mitsubishi, in their wisdom, found out what to do with these, because you'll see on the seats that have just gone up these holes, and these are actually for, if I can get them in, putting your headrests to protect your headrests. How cool a feature is that? And then in the front of the car, it's pretty much what you expect of a Japanese 4x4 manufacturer. It's very functional, it does what it needs to do. It's a little bit dull, a little bit drab, a little bit plasticky, but you'll see the 2 gear sticks. Obviously you've got the standard gear stick, then you've got the gear sticks take it from 2 to 4-wheel drive. So as standard, the Shogun Sport's rear wheel drive. You can select 4-wheel drive, which is the 4H, and then if you get into sort of very slippery conditions, mud, snow, etc., off-road, you can lock it and put it into low to get you out of the worst conditions. Another interesting feature of the Shogun Sport is this switch here. Wow, did that take me several days to find out what that switch did. And that was purely to switch on the aerial, to make the aerial go up and down. What an interesting feature that was. And then the rest of the dash, as I say, lots of instruments there. Probably don't use most of those. It's the voltage and pressures and compass and other directions. And then your standard rev counter and speedo. Seats, you sit a little bit high in these, a little bit of an upright driving position. And it's probably inside, it just feels a little bit smaller than you'd probably expect it to be, but it certainly seats 4 very, very comfortably. So that's a quick whiz round the Shogun Sport. Okay, let's take it for a drive and let's see what it's like. So when you first get into the Shogun Sport, it's you do feel a little bit high, you're a little bit upright in your driving position, and as soon as you've started, you get this quite noisy 2.5 litre turbo diesel. It's commercial, it's the same plan from the L200 pickups, and I had a long hard think about whether I went with a 3 litre V6 petrol or the 2.5 litre turbo diesel. Because I wanted to use it quite a lot as a daily sort of car, then I went with the 2.5 litre turbo diesel, knowing the trade-off is that it's a little bit noisy and a little bit more coarse. Right, let's take it for a drive around some of my local roads and see how we get on. So before I had this Shogun Sport, I owned two Shoguns for the previous sort of 10 years, both for about 5 years. Both great cars, did exactly what we wanted to do as full-blown 4x4s, and we just ran them into the ground really until sort of the bodywork just dropped away from the engine and gearboxes on both were still really strong. It was just rust got them both. But this time we decided to scale down a little bit because we felt we didn't need the large capacity 4x4. We wanted something that had a bit more road manners, and decided to go with the Shogun Sport. I think it's got slightly lower towing capacity, like I've said. Its towing capacity is now only 2.9 tons, kilogram tons, which is 300 kilograms less than the Shogun. The Shogun Sport is definitely a scaled down 4x4. It's not like other SUVs that are almost scaled up cars and pumped up cars just to give yourself a higher driving position. This is very much 4x4 that's been shrink wrapped, but it is a bit tight. It's not greatly spacious in here. If you've got two largish adults in the front, you're going to be touching shoulders. In the back, it's really only good for two adults, and there's not excessive leg room either. So it is a shrink wrap version really of the full-blown Shogun. The gearbox is actually really nice to work to use. It's the 5-speed works very well. I think the most disappointing part of this is the agricultural commercial nature of the 2.5 turbo diesel. It's a little bit, well, it is noisy. It's a noisy unit that does resonate quite loudly in the cabin. So on longer journeys, especially on motorways and things, you'll notice quite a din as you're approaching the sort of the legal 70 mile an hour speed limit for the motorways. It also lowered down the revs. It doesn't pull particularly well. The engine sits better somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 revs, and that seems to be the sweet spot of the engine. And if you keep it there, then it seems to be fine. You've got to understand, obviously, this car now, it's done 103,000. I bought it with 100,000 on the clock. So in the 3 months that I've owned this car, I've put on about 3,000 miles. So about 1,000 miles per month I'm averaging on it. MPG is somewhere in the mid-20s, which is an improvement on the Shoguns that I had before. But I was sort of hoping for possibly high 20s, if not 30. The best I've got was on the long drive up to the Isle of Mull, where I think I touched just about 28. The large 18-inch alloys do make the ride a little bit firm, a little bit harsh at times. The benefit to that is you do get quite direct steering, although I have to say there's little to no feedback coming back through the steering wheel. But it does mean that if you're going along a sort of a country road 40 or 50 miles an hour, it feels like you can hustle it through turns and corners at quite a speed. And the couple of times I've taken this the truck into the field, it's done absolutely great. And I know that's when you ever take any car 4x4 off the road, it's very much dependent on the tyres that are fitted. Well, this has just got standard road tyres on, and albeit it wasn't particularly wet, it travelled and traversed a couple of the hills and slopes within the field, no problems at all. That was simply 2- and 4-wheel drive. Cars like this, you just feel like, although they might be simple in nature, I like that in a sort of everyday utility type of vehicle. I don't want all the bells and whistles. Actually, what I want is is good reliability and good practicality, and I think these Shogun Sports just feel like they're going to be made to last a lifetime. It just all feels well screwed together. The one thing you have got to watch with the Shogun Sports, like my two previous Shoguns, is if they're well maintained, the engine and gearbox on these is just going to run and run and run. The biggest issue you're going to have is on rust, and that's why you've just got to make sure you get underneath and check all underneath, and especially around the sills and arches, just to make sure that rust gets in there and it'll just eat away at the whole structure. But that's one of the things I checked with this when I bought it. I have to say that Shogun Sports are super value for money at the moment. I mean, you can pick them up for around about £1,000, but if you're happy to spend 2-3k on a Shogun Sport, you're going to get quite a tidy one for that. That's the sort of price range I paid for this, and I mean, it was 100,000 on, which is not a lot for a 2.5 turbo diesel. And the bodywork was in fantastic condition, the leather was in great condition, there was really no fault in the car at all. I was also looking at Shoguns, but I couldn't get a decent one for the same sort of money. And the problem was with most of the Shoguns that I looked at, they were absolutely dying of rust underneath. So this has obviously led, I think, an easier life probably on the road than doing some of the more off-road stuff that the general Shoguns do. But on some of the the group chats and forums that I'm on through the Shogun Sport, a lot of off-road guys drive the Shogun Sports. They put lots of suspension risers on them to get a lot more ground clearance, probably because they're small and probably more nimble than the full Shoguns. I think simple things quite often got wrong, but actually once you've got driving, they say the gear stick's nice. The only issue I have is there's no footrest for the clutch foot, which when you're on country lanes isn't a problem, but when I spent hour after hour on the motorway going up to Mull, that's when I really noticed it. But to tell you the truth, this truck won't spend much time on the motorway anyway. It'll mostly be in country lanes, B roads, doing a bit of towing, being the everyday vehicle really. And that's what it's best for. These cars are sometimes quite often and hard to actually find for sale, because what happens is probably people do similar to what I did with my other Shoguns. They tend to buy them now and not sell. They'll just drive until they become beyond economically to repair. The chances are we'll keep this for years and just run it early into the ground, and the chances are again that the engine and gearbox will probably be strong, and it'll be the bodywork that just eats away and makes it just unaffordable to repair and get through MOTs. So what's my summary of the Shogun Sport then? Well, there are a few negatives to the car. I think it's a little bit unrefined, certainly at motorway speeds and higher speeds. It's a little bit noisy, and there's probably better road going refined SUVs, the pumped up cars. But if you want a true scaled down 4x4 that's got great towing capacity, great utility vehicle, and is actually comfy to drive, then the Shogun Sport has to be on your shortlist. It's built as though they will last forever. The reliability Mitsubishi reliability is absolutely proven. In the 3 months I have had that one sheared bolt off the alternator that caused me a few issues when I went up to the Isle of Mull a few months ago. There's a video on that if you check on YouTube. But other than that, it's been reliable. They're relatively simple to work on, so you can do a lot of home mechanics and a lot of DIY yourself. And I think they're absolutely terrific value for money. This 100,000 miles, really good condition, 2 to 3k, that's all they go for. This engine will run for another 100,000 without any major engine work on it. And the only thing that it'll just be how long the body in the shell of the car can last. So look after it, and it'll look after you. And just like the previous Shoguns, the only other issue you'll have is trying to find one, because good ones owners generally tend to use, and they'll use until they just literally fall apart and become uneconomical to repair. That's exactly what my plan will be with this. I don't think I'll ever sell it. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, please subscribe and stay tuned, because there'll be another video coming up very soon.